Hey guys, I'm Jacob Payton and welcome back to my channel. And today we'll be talking about Christopher Pike's The Scavenger Hunt. There's a lot to talk about on this book. I guess first I'll start by reading the back. The hunt was on. School was almost over. A secretive club on campus had organized a scavenger hunt for the entire senior class in small groups, and with the help of cleverly planted clues, the kids are led throughout the city and then deep into the nighttime desert. The sponsoring club has promised a wonderful prize for the first group to reach the goal of the hunt. But for Carl Timmons, a troubled young man who has recently lost his best friend, the hunt will become a nightmare. Led astray by his love for a strangely beautiful girl, he will wander far from the others and back into a haunted past, where the line between the living and the dead is blurred and broken. Okay, so first off, he never travels to the past. That is not something that happens. The cover, like most Christopher Pike books, is kind of a lie. They never really wind up in some awesome cemetery with trees. Most of this book takes place in a desert area of Southern California. Before I get too far into it, I do want to say that I do actually enjoy Christopher Pike books. I'm not going to just be crapping on Christopher Pike the entire time. I love the Spooksville series. I avidly collect the Spooksville series, although, I mean, that's a whole nother video. I'm obviously upset that they stopped printing the reprints up to, like, I think it was book 14 or 13 and then stopped, and there's like 20 some books, but that's neither here or there. That just means I get to pick through a lot of stuff. The thing with Christopher Pike is, while his books, I don't even know how to describe it. His books just are so over the top at times. Like, you think you know where they're going, and then it just goes in a completely opposite direction, which can sometimes be really fun, and the other times just make you super angry. I tend to lean in that I think they're really fun, because it definitely keeps you on your toes. Like, there's no guessing what you think is going to happen. It just kind of takes a left when you think it might be going right. And I think in this way, he's very different than a lot of other YA horror that was getting put out by this time, or at this time. He also had some of the coolest covers, in my opinion. I always love the script that gets put on his covers. I mean, that typography is simply amazing. And even though often the covers don't actually match up to what's in the book, I definitely can understand that, like, how they helped sell books, because these are amazing covers. Even if, once again, they don't match up, usually they aren't like super far off. I mean, obviously this is still kids on a scavenger hunt. They're just not in the exact type of setting that the book takes place in. Now, there's a lot of weirdness going on in this book, but to be fair, I think it's just weird to me because the characters are teenagers, and there's a lot of stuff talking about, like, sexuality, and the way it's described is kind of gross to me. But I'm also a grown man who, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not thinking about 15-year-olds, but I could definitely see how maybe when I was younger, I would have enjoyed that type of writing and description a lot more than I do at my current age, looking back and reading it. I mean, some of it, obviously, it's still kind of weird. Like a lot of the dialogue definitely doesn't feel like things teenagers would say, even in, I don't know if this was supposed to take place in, like, the 80s or 90s, but I will tell you guys right now. Yeah, 89. I feel like kids in 89 probably didn't really talk this way either. Yeah, it definitely is a different kind of book for sure, especially since I've been reading a lot of R.L. Stine lately. But that being said, I did think it was a lot of fun. It didn't take me very long to read, as I wanted to know what happened. Now, the main characters get split into two scavenger hunt teams. One led by, I think it was Tracy, Paula, and Rick, and the other is Carl, Tom, and Ceci and her brother, Davy. Now, Carl obviously has a thing for Ceci, who he caught skinny dipping earlier. Tracy has a thing for Carl. She is completely head over heels for Carl, and he doesn't notice at all. And then there is Rick, who is super smart, and I don't know if they say what disease he has, but he is wheelchair bound, and it is hinted that he does not have a very long life ahead of him, so I do think he has some sort of degenerative disease, to the point that Paula and Rick's parents have actually stopped paying for his treatments and for his medication. But I forget exactly which disease. I think they said what disease he had, but now I completely blanked it out. Anyway, they are following a scavenger hunt given to them by a somewhat creepy teacher who doesn't make it throughout the book. It also becomes clear very early on that something is very wrong with the directions they've been given, as they don't see any of the other groups as they go around town, so maybe they were given completely different instructions, or a completely different scavenger hunt. Early on, I think it was Tracy catches Ceci and David kissing, and since Ceci and David are supposedly brother and sister, that is the first clue that something very wrong is going on. There's also the fact that Carl is constantly being haunted by the death of his friend Joe, who drowned. I think it was like a year earlier, they said, something like that, in a flash flood while they were hiking, and he has not gotten over that. Now, this could be a revenge story where Joe, who later, spoiler alert, it is alluded to, is actually, Tom is actually Joe, who's been brought back. I'll get into that in a second. But the plot, if we were going right, would be that Joe has come back to somehow wreak revenge on, Carl and everyone else, because this was his friend group, or supposed friend group. I think Paula was his ex-girlfriend before he died, and also hasn't gotten over him. But that's not what happens. What happens is, and spoiler alert if you were going to read this book, Ceci and Davy are some sort of reptilian creatures who have to sacrifice people in this weird altar in an abandoned mine, because they are from a different universe, or a different hell, as what they allude to. And they need, I guess, almost like people's souls so that they can have bodies on Earth and live forever. And they brought back Tom, who is Joe. They gave him a body because they felt him reach out to them when he drowned. They were able to come through by his anger. Now, if you're like me, you never in a million years would have guessed that the main villains were going to turn out to be magical dinosaurs from another dimension. However, when this does come out, this is where one of, or at least what I count as one of Christopher Pike's tropes, starts to come into play, in which he starts very much dabbling in different forms of spirituality, which I've always found interesting, especially in YA books. He kind of plays around a lot with, like Christianity and even some more like Eastern religions, which I've always found to be interesting in his books. And is definitely something that was very different, I feel, than other YA books at the time. Because, you know, if you read like Fear Street or something like that, it's very much like this is the bad guy, or this is the monster, or this is the killer, and this is how we handle it and move on. There was no like lingering questions of the origins, if that makes sense, you know, because it's hinted at early on. I mean, when they revealed themselves, that there are not only other dimensions, but there are other hells. And there's a possibility that they came from a different hell. So, you know, there's like this element of cosmic horror in a way that is now in this book that I thought was very interesting. And this is also the point where Ceci and Davy really stop acting human altogether. I mean, Ceci was already kind of weird, especially in her interactions with Carl. And the way both of them behaved were not the ways that you would expect almost like teenagers to behave. So it was very interesting to see them drop, you know, any sense that they're human at all. And Ceci becomes very narrow focused in a way. She cares about like the things she can eat. Basically like an immortal being that just wants to be entertained. She wants to be entertained by the dog. She wants to keep pets. She's amused by Rick, so she wants him to live. And then she becomes fascinated by this other sense of religion, which I'll get into in a minute. Davy, on the other hand, does not care about them at all. He cares about how his master plan has unfolded and all the bad things he's going to do to them, because the longer he can prolong their suffering, the more powerful the ritual he's about to perform is going to be. It's alluded to that I think Davy is was some sort of priest or dinosaur sorcerer reptilian thing, whereas Ceci was so much more. She even hints multiple times when she helps the group kind of take down Davy that the reason she helped them at all is because he had forgotten what she really was. It was almost hinted that, you know, maybe she's a queen or a goddess, or, you know, she was something so much more than him, that for him to forget was an insult to her. And coming from, you know, as you read about Ceci, you know, she needed to know the way he did the ritual, and then once she figured that out, there was no point to keep him around. She is able to help the others defeat him by pretending to have an interest, or maybe she doesn't really have an interest in Catholicism. Though it's kind of hard to believe that for a being as old as her, she somehow doesn't... She's never heard of Christianity or any types of human religion, which I found hard to believe, since it kind of was hinted at that she has been... You know, they've been coming back again and again to the Western world, especially the Americas, which is like shown through the story of the Volta Mine, which is a very long, convoluted story and didn't really play out in any way, shape, or form in the book, besides the fact that that's where they had to go. But there was like all this backstory on this like mine from the 1800s that then like really didn't go anywhere. Like, I don't know, it was kind of weird, but it was interesting. Also, the word like Volta, which you think is going to have like this big meaning, it then didn't. So, you know, that was what it was. And of course, my favorite character in this book was Rick. I thought he was a very interesting character. And so, of course, he is the only one out of the group to actually get killed. Which I thought kind of sucked. I also really didn't like the way everyone seemed to shrug off his death as, oh yeah, well, you know, that sucks, but he didn't have a long life ahead of him anyway. Which... You know, I mean, Paul was actually upset, but the rest of them seemed to just kind of be like, well, as long as it wasn't one of us, type of deal, which I didn't find very endearing when dealing with the rest of the characters. That being said, I did actually like Scavenger Hunt. I don't think this is one of Christopher Pike's best books, but if you haven't read it and you come across it, I recommend reading it. I really wish there had been some sort of sequel because, spoiler alert, Ceci does hint that she might come back. But, you know, up until now, she hasn't. I don't know if Christopher Pike has plans to write one down in the future. I don't think he's writing YA horror books anymore. Once again, I don't know if you guys are aware of this. Christopher Pike is a pseudonym. That's not his real name. I don't think he actually writes under his real name, unless I'm mistaken. So I do believe these are all the books that he has out. And I could be completely wrong about that. He could have entire lines that I just don't know about. But that is a video for another day. So I will say read this book if you haven't. If you don't think you will like a book about magical dinosaurs from another dimension who set up convoluted plots in high schools to live forever, then don't read this book. If you liked this video or disagreed with anything I said or agreed with anything I said or just want to comment and tell me what to read next, once again, my comments are always open and I am happy to hear from you guys. And as always, please like and subscribe. And until next time, I am Jacob Payton. See you guys later.